A Michigan judge has just sentenced 3 siblings to time in a juvenile detention center because they refused to have a relationship with their father. This is regarding a divorce case that's been dragged out since 2009, and it involves 2 parents who are not only divorcing, their relationship deteriorated after the father in the relationship received a job offer from General Motors in Israel and wanted his entire family to move there. Well, his wife also has a career in the United States and didn't want to do it, but eventually they reconciled, they all moved to Israel, and less than a year later, the wife decided, no, I'm going back to the United States. That was when she filed for divorce, and things have been a complete and utter disaster ever since. Now, the 3 children maintain that they don't want to have a relationship with the father because they witnessed him hit their mother. Now, understand that he's never been charged or convicted for abusing or battering the mother in this case. There's no evidence of it, but the kids say that that is the case. Nonetheless, the judge in this case is so upset that the children refused to have lunch with their father that she decided the best way to handle the situation is to put them in a juvenile detention center until they're all adults, until they're all 18. Keep in mind that the ages of these kids are 15, 10, and 9 years old.
First of all, understand that it's a contempt order, right? So she says, you're in contempt, and so I'm going to put you in prison until you're not in contempt anymore, okay? So that means indefinitely, and for juveniles, that means indefinitely until you're the age of 18. Mm-hmm. Does she really intend to keep the 9-year-old in prison for 9 years for not having lunch with his dad? No. I'd be shocked if that was her intent. Mm-hmm. I don't think it is, and it's certainly, whether it was her intent or not, it certainly will not happen because everybody is justifiably outraged by this, mm-hmm. right? So now, I also think this is a little bit more complicated because the judge seems to believe that the dad is right in a lot of ways, right?
Yep.
So leading me to believe, now we didn't sit through all of those incredibly messy divorce proceedings. Nobody did. And the articles on it don't go into great detail about who was right about what, right? But the judge's reaction seems to indicate to me that perhaps the mom was really keeping the kids away from the dad in a really, really unhealthy and unproductive way. So I'm not defending the judge's decision, by the way. I want to be clear about that. But let's read the judge's decision, yes. Anna, and then I want to come back and talk more about it.
All right. So I actually wrote about this for Raw Story. It'll be published later tonight. So I did a lot of research on this story because I wanted to figure out what exactly is at play. So the judge appointed a mental health professional to see what was going on. And the mental health professional said that she notices, or there is some evidence that there is something known as parental alienation involved, meaning that one parent is bad-mouthing the other parent and brainwashing the children from having a good relationship from the other parent, right? Now, mental health professionals argue, disagree, debate about whether or not that's even a legitimate thing, right? But we all know that when parents are divorcing, they badmouth one another, and that could have an influence on the kids.
Okay,
right?
So let me just be clear about that. Is it a thing as in, is it a condition? Yeah, you know, you can have a debate about that. Is it a thing as in it happens? Of course it happens, right? And did it happen in this case? They seem to be convinced that the mom was doing it about the dad. Certainly the judge was convinced of that. And so that's not surprising. That happens all the time. It doesn't happen in every case. There's a lot of good, healthy divorces, even though the people couldn't get along, even though they might have had real issues with each other, they're great about the kids and they don't badmouth each other. That was not the case here, obviously.
Right. So here's what the judge had to say about this. She said, there is no reason why you do not have a relationship with your father. Your father has never been charged with anything. Your father has never been convicted of anything. Your father doesn't have a personal protection order against him. You, young man, speaking to the 15-year-old, have got it wrong. I think your father is a great man who has gone through hoops for you to have a relationship with you. Now, when all the kids remained resistant, the judge ruled them in contempt and sent them to Children's Village, which is the juvenile detention center, until age 18. The trio have reportedly since been separated from each other, as well as both of their parents, who aren't even allowed to visit them. So it's a little counterproductive considering that the judge wants them to have a good relationship with their father. But here's the thing. If you want to convince kids to have a good relationship with their father, or if you want kids to have a healthy and happy life, you don't throw them in a juvenile detention center for kids who are troubled because they've dealt with abuse or whatever it is. The part of the detention center that they're dealing with includes kids that have been abused, that have been severely abused, right? And they've gotten into criminal behavior as a result of that. These kids are not criminals, okay? We've all been there. I was a teenager. I had issues with my dad. I love my dad. But of course, I was rebellious, whatever. To throw me in a detention center for that is absolutely ridiculous. This judge is completely unaware of the correct punishments or the correct way to handle a situation like this. This is not the way you handle it.
There's this weird situation where I find this decision so obviously outrageous that I'm not that outraged by it because I feel like it has to be fixed imminently. I mean, nobody can. This is crazy.
They've been there for 2 weeks already.
I know. So, and if the next hearing is set for September 8th.
Yes.
No, you can't keep the kids in prison. This is not a timeout. You know, I know parents get frustrated. You give timeouts. Well, you are going to sit in your room alone for 2 minutes. I'm going crazy. 5 minutes, right? You can't put them in juvie for 2 weeks, for months, for the whole summer because they didn't have lunch with their dad or they didn't listen to their dad. Look, if you obviously judge is sympathetic to the dad, and there might be great reasons for that. And if you're super frustrated with the mom who's bad-mouthing the dad and has poisoned the kid's relationship with the dad, I hear you. It depends on the situation, but obviously the judges. You got to find a different answer. This isn't the right answer. This is nuts. You got to get those kids out of prison. Out of juvenile detention center immediately.
I read the transcripts from the hearing because I was really curious to see how this judge handled everything, how this judge handled the children, right? When it came to the youngest, the 9-year-old girl, she was having a hard time speaking. It's a 9-year-old kid. Remember what you were like when you were 9 years old, right? So the judge is questioning her.
I was an ass kicker, but that's okay.
Of course, right? She's struggling. You're unbearable. She's struggling to communicate with the judge, and the judge said, God gave you a brain. You should use it.
Oh, no.
Just the way the judge was speaking to these children. No, I'm sorry. Look, if there is evidence that the mother badmouthed the father and the father has done nothing wrong, then you punish the mother. You don't punish the children. Okay? You are literally robbing them of their childhood by putting them in a detention center when they have not committed any crime. She's
got a weirdly malicious, like almost malicious attitude towards the kids.
It doesn't make any sense.
Which is so weird, I can't even comprehend it. No, it can't stand. You got to get them out of there right now. I mean, get them out of there and give them to the dad. Okay, but it doesn't do him the dad any good to have his kids in prison. I mean, if I'm the dad, I'd be like, no. I wanted to see them. I didn't want them in juvie. You crazy? No, get them out of there.
And by the way, keep in mind that in the very beginning, even though the wife in this story did not want to move to Israel, she was willing to give it a shot. Okay? Yeah. She moved her entire family to Israel because he got a job at General Motors in Israel. So she gave it a shot. I don't know the details of their relationship or exactly how they react with one another. But nonetheless, I mean, I don't want to demonize either party in this case because we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, and I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to the dad based on the judge, but I shouldn't because the judge is obviously not making rational decisions, right? So it might just be that the mom is right. We don't know enough to judge that. All we know is get them out of juvenile detention right now.